In this video today, we're going to be talking about the transit of Venus into the sign of Aries and what that means for each of the zodiac signs. In the description, there will be timestamps for your zodiac sign, and before that, there will be like a part in the video where I talk about like the general energy and like kind of break things down into a more general sense. Like this is the when you think about like the general part is like the considerations that I take when making my horoscopes, you know what I mean? I'm going to explain that part to you. And so for the general energy, right? Venus in Aries. Venus in Aries is not necessarily a very good energy. The sign of Aries is ruled by the planet Mars, right? Mars represents aggression, assertion, and physical, like getting things done. Venus is a much more soft, much more emotional, much more vibey kind of planet. And so there's a contradiction between the two significations. When Venus is in Aries, it can be Venus can feel very, very pressured. Venus can feel very, very rushed. Venus can feel like very like it can be very like not damaging is not the word, but like it can feel detrimental. It is called a detriment for that reason because it can feel like Venus is being almost bullied, right? Aries is a very like they'll say things and like they don't always really mean what they say. They talk a lot, they have a lot to say, and like sometimes what they say can be a little bit sharp, right? And Venus is very, very sensitive. And so those two energies, when you think about it, really don't match. They really don't mesh well. Sensitivity and the opposite, right? They're very opposite topics. And so when Venus is in Aries, this is a time where in general, I would say like you should pay more attention to what you're saying in the sense of like don't like people might think too deeply into what you're saying. People will it's not that you should pay more attention, but it's a time where like think like water and fire, right? When water and fire mix, they make steam, right? There's that high energy. There's a lot of potential and steam is very, very hot, right? It has the potential to hurt you, but it also has the potential to power a train. And so that's what I want you to think about under this transit is like what you say has the potential both to hurt or to make the situation better. There is that possibility. Like sometimes hard truths have to come out into reality, right? Sometimes hard truths have to be said, but not always are you supposed to be the messenger, you know what I mean? There's a wisdom I feel like needed for Venus and Aries. And a lot of times I like to personally like I think of Venus as like wisdom. I mean, I guess you could say that about any of the signs. It's the wisdom of like love and negotiation and people and like the wisdom of love is really kind of the energy. I mean, you can say that about all the planets, I guess. But like, I just feel like when Venus is in an area, right, that is an area that is attractive. And so that's what we're really going to be talking about in this sign. What area of your life is most attractive at this time and how to really draw people in. But understand that like there has to be like a knowing that like with Venus, right? Venus is about attraction. Venus, you can't necessarily attract things. At least I feel like not astrologers, but like spirituality people say this all the time. Like you have to let things come to you when you're trying to be attractive, right? You can't chase things. And with Venus and Aries, there is the inclination because Aries is a very like chasing sign. Aries, Mars chases after things. That's what Mars does. That's what Mars wants to do is to go after things, to retrieve them, to go get them. And Venus is exactly the opposite, right? And so when there is that inherent contradiction at this time. And I feel like with an awareness of that, that's why I'm trying to like I'm kind of laboring the point, but I'm trying to explain like that inherent contradiction by knowing that there is an inherent contradiction like in the sky and the energy around you, right? I feel like knowledge is power. And so at this time, just be aware that if you're tempted to chase something, in the area of life that I'm talking about, so like for Aries, right, you're highly attractive. Your body, your appearance will be highly attractive. If you're tempted to run after that, if you're like, I need to do all these things to be highly attractive, the easier route at this time might be a better solution, and that will be true for all of the signs. Like taking the easy route is almost like it's a good idea at this time. It's a good idea at this time. And I think that's explaining it pretty good. Mercury will retrograde this week as well past Venus, and like there will be a brief conjunction. And I feel like this is a time to like to understand better like what people are trying to say. When Mercury is retrograde, that can make communication like this right here. That can make communication a little bit difficult to understand. And with Venus there, there is the opportunity to say like, I don't understand you right now, but I understand you as a person. You know what I mean? There is that opportunity to maybe have grace. And I feel like that's a good way of explaining it. Like there's the opportunity for grace, there's the opportunity for deeper level of understanding beyond what words can comprehend. You know what I mean? And so I feel like at this time you have to let like the specific details, the exact details per se go just a little bit, and there is the need to really like to see things at their core and to understand things from like a wiser, a greater perspective, like a bird's eye kind of perspective, you know? And so we're gonna start off with the sign of Aries. I'm looking at my computer because like my space is right there, but oh, I should talk about the aspects. So this week Venus makes a is leaving a sextile aspect with the planet Uranus. And this represents like unforeseen things. This can be like chaotic events in your life. This can be like a time where things seem to happen to you like randomly or at a spur of the moment. And so I would say this energy, like, there is just the potential for unseen things. But with Venus moving into a sextile with Neptune, or a conjunction with Neptune, that's actually a very important aspect, and I almost missed talking about it. Okay, so Neptune is the higher octave of Venus, right? Neptune is in Aries. It's not necessarily happy about it, it's not necessarily comfortable with it, but Neptune connects to spirituality, it connects to dreams, and it connects to delusion sometimes. And so this can be a period where you're reminiscent of the past. You're thinking about love in a very romantic terms. And I feel like that's a very good thing, obviously, right? That's a good thing to think about love romantically. It's a good thing to I mean, duh. But like it's a good thing to be like to romanticize the idea of love, right? But you can't get lost in that. Like it is very possible to get lost in that, you know what I mean? Like it's very possible to get lost in the energy that like what could be or what could have been. And I feel like under this transit, like it's important to understand that like at this time you could feel lost in those feelings. And it's just a time where like it's a good time to see things more as their face value. It's a good time to like knowing all this information, right? We're talking about delusions, we're talking about fears, we're talking about issues communicate. There's a lot going on that could be very, very confusing. And I feel like that is the best tone for this transit. That is the best thing to say is like you have to be aware that things are not really things may not be as they first appear. Things may not be as they first seem as your mind first thinks. And so this is not really a time to listen to that crazy thought in your head that is driving you forward. This is a time to be very factual. I feel like this is a time to see things a little more cut and dry and to really let things come to you. Like let information present itself to you at this time. I feel like is a really good message for all the signs. I'm sorry, for all the signs. I feel like that's a good message. And a good way to really sum it up is to like to allow the information to come to you and then decipher that. And even like allowing yourself to sit with information, you know what I mean? Like not forcing yourself to make a reaction at the moment. Like there is like you have the possibility to like to say, you know what, I'm going to react later. And I feel like that would be a very wise way to use this energy. And so now we're going to get into the weekly horoscope section where I talk about Venus and Aries for each of the signs. And so but that is the transit happening this week. That is the horoscopes. I forgot to say this in the beginning of the video, but I do offer live astrology readings. And so if you ever want a live astrology reading where we sit down face to face and talk about your birth chart, we do it on Zoom. You can book a time slot. It's $25. You can book a time slot at my website. It'll be in the description, so I'll have like a describer there too. You know what I mean? But you can book a time slot and then we get to meet face to face and you can ask all the questions about your birth chart and about the information of the stars in your life and how it impacts you. It's a much more like it's a much more tailored approach than like a horoscope. You know what I mean? Horoscopes are general. There are more than 12 people in the world, so there's more than 12 possibilities of how this transit will, you know? But when we look at the birth chart, we have a lot more information, we have a lot more details, and I love getting to talk to people about their horoscopes, their signs. So if you're interested in that, you can book a reading with me in the description. So Venus in Aries for Aries is making you highly, highly attractive, right? When Venus is in your sign and your sign is Aries, right? This is a time where things are coming to you, right? The first house where Venus sits represents our body, right? It represents our appearance. And it represents our energy in this lifetime. And so at this time, you could be tempted to like change your appearance. You could be tempted to do a lot of things or like make dramatic changes, is a good way to put it, to your appearance. And I feel like there's an easier solution or there's a way that you can like when we talk about Venus, right? Venus represents ease in our life. And so this is a time where like you can change your like a small change can make the world a difference. or like small efforts have the potential to have higher payoffs. And it's a good time to really to vibrate in the energy of attraction rather than being like, I need to do this, I need to do this, I need to do this to be attractive. It's a time to recognize that you are attractive the way you are, and it's a time to really pull people in with that energy. And so for Aries, I would say like less is more is really the vibe. And when we talk about Aries, right, that's not their motto ever. They're the most. And so I would just say right now, that's the best advice I could give for Aries is that less is more for the next 30 days while Venus is in your sign. Try to attract, let things come to you, and understand this is a time, this can be a time of ease, and this is a good time to take it a little bit easier. Especially in love, because when we talk about Venus, like I was saying, Venus in Aries is kind of harsh. It can be kind of difficult. It can be kind of confusing. And so I feel like now is just time to let information present itself to you, Aries, and to listen to your intuition. That is also a message. Like our intuition speaks loudest when we are quiet, right? When we are quiet. And I feel like that is the best message for Aries is like to take time to process things, allow yourself to make mistakes even, and be graceful. Be graceful with yourself. Give yourself grace is a really important message I feel like for Aries. So for Taurus, I'm sorry, Taurus, you have Venus in your 12th house, and the 12th house deals with the subconscious mind, hidden enemies. It can deal with the past as well, and it deals a lot of times with like what's going on behind the scenes of our minds, right? What is motivating us in an unconscious and subconscious way. And so when Venus is here, we have the opportunity to see and gain wisdom with what goes on behind the scenes in our life. And so this means like your motivating factors. What fears are motivating you? You know what I mean? When we have a fear that is substantial, right? It motivates us to hide. It motivates us to say something different, to not say that thing. You know what I mean? And so right now is a time where like maybe you're not able to act upon like the noticing of these fears, but this is a time where those fears are being you could feel like there are situations that are forcing you to be that are scaring you in a sense. There could be situations that seem like they're like happening upon you that are random or are, you know what I mean, are unforeseen, are they trigger your subconscious mind in a way. And this is a time to really go inward, to nurture yourself, to be gracious with yourself, and to understand that like you don't have to have all the answers at once. Like sometimes it takes time to recognize subconscious patterns, to recognize subconscious triggers. And I feel like that is okay for Tauruses, especially at this time. Venus is your ruling planet and is most significant in your life. And so I feel like this is a significant time for you of recognizing like your own insecurities, of recognizing your own like what you would call like your dysfunctions. You know what I mean? This is a time where you're seeing those things. It also connects to hidden enemies. So you could be noticing like a friend that you thought was a friend, and it's like at this time they're not nurturing you, they're not helping you, they're not working with you, they're working against you is kind of the vibe. And so this is just a time I feel like for Tauruses to be aware and to be, I mean, that's the energy for all the signs, to be aware and to be gracious, to take the information in. But I don't feel like this is the time to act upon it. Later this month, Mars will enter here as well, and that will trigger more of an action for Tauruses with this information that you're gaining, right? And so now is the time to really internalize things, receive information, and accept it into your subconscious. Like it's a time to notice, I feel like your reactions as well, and to it like to see them from above, you know what I mean, to see them from an outside perspective and to give yourself grace. It's a time to like to start recognizing things, but understand that like not everything happens in a day, you know what I mean. It may take time. It may be a little uncomfortable. So for Geminis, Venus is entering your 11th house. And so the 11th house connects to our network in life, our friendships, and our the groupings of people that we have around us, right? The extents that our presence can reach. And this is a very good time for you to attract new people into your life, for you to, I would say, broaden your horizons, to take what you know, to take what you're good at, and to market it, to share it with people, to get it out in front of people. I would almost say that this is a time for you to be, it's kind of like I'm seeing two sides, right? Because I was talking about like it's a time to really try for trial and error, I feel like is the best way to put it. This is a time where like you might try a bunch of things and only one of those things sticks. You know what I mean? It's time to really throw things at the wall and see what works. You know what I mean? Kind of. And when we talk about Venus, right, Venus is about attraction. And so when we talk about like attracting in new connections, these kind of things, there is that temptation to chase, right? And so I would almost remind you of the warning of like not chasing after things. Like you can put your foot in the water, but that doesn't mean like you're chasing the water, you know what I mean? You can initiate something and you like without being overly zealous or overly ambitious towards it, you know? Geminis, you have a lot to say. You have a lot of words to say. And I feel like this is a good time to really listen to the people around you, like see their reactions to what you're doing. Like if you're presenting a project at work, you know what I mean? Look at the people around you's reactions. Pay close attention to that and understand that their reactions, their perspective of your situation will serve to teach you something about what's going on in your life. So for Cancers this week, you have Venus entering your 10th house, and the 10th house connects to our career, our public achievements. It is the most visible place in the chart, and this represents like it's 12 o'clock noon, right? This is the top of the chart. This is the most visible place. This represents the achievements that we make in the world around us and the way that our life affects other people. And so I would say with Venus here, this is a time to really notice the effect that you have on people, and this is a time to really receive information about like this is a time to collect data is kind of what I'm getting. Like this is a time to it might be difficult if you're like constantly running after something, if you're constantly trying to force a topic, right? It can be difficult to sit back and take a moment to pause and reflect on like what you truly want to gain from the situation. And I feel like this transit offers you the opportunity to say, you know what, I'm going to take a step back. What do I want from the situation? What do I need from the situation? What is the higher purpose? What is the goal? What is the motivating factor at this time for you, Cancer? And I feel like this is a time to really observe why you do things. Maybe ask why. This is a good time, I feel like, to maybe investigate your own intentions and just to notice your own intentions. Maybe not a time to really like be pushing for that achievement. This is a time to say, why do I want this achievement? And really ask yourself, like, what is motivating me towards this achievement? So for Leos this week, we have the Venus in your ninth house, and I feel like this is a time to bring in exciting experiences and to understand that in life you don't have to make everything happen. Sometimes things happen naturally, right? I feel like this is a time to be very natural, be very blase blah is kind of the vibe for Leos, and that's a good thing. You love blase blah energy, but the ninth house represents philosophy, travels, and education. And so I feel like this is a time where you'll have the opportunity, if you're quiet, if you take time to reflect, you'll have the opportunity to bring in the right experiences, and this is a time where you might find the right experiences. Maybe you've had a question about like what you need to do at this time. Like maybe you had a question about like what effect, what do you want to grow, what way do you want to grow, way do you want to expand in life. And this is a time where maybe you like if you find time to be quiet, if you find time to look inward, I feel like the answers will be presented to you as kind of, or maybe like options will be presented to you at this time. And this is just a time I feel like the ninth house really connects to spirituality as well. And so this is a time to really to be introspective and to think about the future. I feel like that's a good vibe for Leos is really to think about the future and think about like the greater purpose of your actions and in the future. Also for Leos, I feel like this is a good time to really to not be so serious about things. We have Saturn in this sign as well, and so I feel like the next 2.5 years, you're gonna be taking like spirituality, you're gonna be taking these things very, very seriously, Leo. And I feel like this is a time where like you can maybe take a break from all the serious, like ask yourself, why so serious? And this is a good time to really to relish in what life has for you to experience and to enjoy life, to slow down and enjoy life just a little bit. So for Virgos, we have Venus transiting the eighth house, and I feel like this is a good time to plan long-term investments, and this is a good time to like see like the things that you've invested in, right? What have you received from them? What do you want to receive from them? And really to evaluate that area and look at that area like what has been the output? What has been the consistent thing in this relationship, in this partnership, in this commitment? What has been the consistent energy? And what do I want? What do I desire from this relationship? Do those things align? And I feel like this isn't the time to act. this is the time to be noticing these overlaps or lack thereof is kind of the energy. And so for Virgos at this time, I feel like this is a very subtle time. In my book that I read, it literally said this is a very subtle time. And so I feel like there are subtle effects happening, and it's important that you're inquisitive, but that you not necessarily are inquisitive, but that you let the facts present themselves to you at this time. And that means that you have to quiet your mind, you know what I mean? And let yourself let things be presented to you. This is a time I feel like really this is a time to listen and to notice the effects of other people in your life around you and notice are they investing in you? Like if you're always talking over people, it can be hard to see what they're investing in you. You know what I mean? And that's kind of the energy, that's kind of to sum this transit up. This is a time where it's like you want to better see what people are investing in you so that way you know how to invest in them. You know what I mean? You want to see you want to notice the give and take relationships right now around you, and this is a time to pick up on the subtleties of what's happening around you and what's happening with your investments, what's happening with business partners, spouses, close friends, you know what I mean? What is the give and take? What is the balance in these relationships? What is the focus? What is going on in these relationships? So, Libra, this week you have Venus in your seventh house, and the seventh house connects to partnerships, relationships, and sometimes love. It can connect to love. And so there is kind of the vibe that right now is a time where you might be meeting somebody, but with this energy of Neptune, right, there is the potential to not see things for what they truly are. And I feel like that is an important message for Libras. It's to be aware that you know what I mean? Think about infatuation. When we are infatuated, we don't see all the facts because that chemical dopamine energy is in our brain and it is affecting us. And so this is a time where in your relationships you have the potential to have clouded judgment. That's what I would say. And I feel like that is an important message, but to be aware of the potential for clouded judgment and just understand that now is a receptive time. Now is a time where you're supposed to be receiving from situations, and it's just a good time to observe what people are putting into you and think about the message what was I gonna say? Like in relationships, it's about give and take, right? And you can only really control one side of the relationship. You can only control what you give. And so maybe you've been giving, giving, giving. This is a good time to notice what people are giving back to you and take that into account. To notice that and to remember that, to hold that close and really focus on what people are giving back to you when you give, you know? So, Scorpio, this week we have Venus in your sixth house. And this is the house that represents our routine, our work, and our health. And this is a difficult house. And Venus is a planet of ease. Venus is a planet of beauty. And so there's kind of a lot of effects that could be happening. This could be a time where you're finding ease with difficult topics, or this is a time to maybe not necessarily seek out solutions, but this is a time where solutions might, if you're aware, if you're paying attention, the solutions might present themselves to you. And I also feel like this is a time to understand the motivating factors behind other people in your life and to understand even your own motivating factors better. And this is just a time I feel like to slow down, to pay attention to what goes on around you with the people in your life and to see what's happening in your routine, right? To notice more details of what's happening behind the scenes and in the working manner of your life. What is keeping you going? This is a good time to really analyze what is your routine? What is the routine of love? What is the routine of you? And how is that important? How is that keeping you going? How is that motivating you to continue? I feel like this is a time to really notice and to take information in about what you want from your routine, what you want your life to look like, and what you want to create. This can be a serious time. There is kind of serious topics. And so in love, you could be having serious conversations with a lover, or you could be having serious conversations with somebody. And but this is a time to more so to listen. I keep saying that for each of the signs, but this is a time to listen and to find that balance. Venus ultimately seeks balance. That's kind of the concept of relationships, right? And so in order to have balance, you have to remember that you have to listen. You have to understand that whenever negotiation, but not negotiation. What am I trying to say? Whenever you have to meet in the middle, both people have to be able to speak. And so understanding that you have to get your point across, yes, but you also have to listen to the points of another is very important, I feel like, at this time for Scorpios. So for Sagittarius, you are probably the luckiest sign in the zodiac, like for the next 30 days. Like this is a very good time for Sagittarius. For Sagittarius, you have Venus in your fifth house, and the fifth house connects to dating, romance, and creativity. All of the significations of Venus. And so this is a time where like you could be chasing after exciting experiences, fun experiences, and you could be like running after romance is kind of the vibe. I feel like there is like almost like a serial dating vibe. And it's like that's a good thing at this time, you know what I mean? Don't take things too seriously. This is, I feel like, meant to be a very, very lighthearted time for Sagittariuses. And I feel like this is a time where like creativity is very, very important. Like putting a creative spin on things. There is just the potential with a Venus Neptune conjunction in your fifth house. This can be very, very magical. This can be very, very creative. This can be very, very beautiful, but it may not have the most lasting or like permanently impacting quality. You may see this situation as more than it truly is, or like in a grandiose sense. I feel like grandiosity is a good word for Sagittarius to be aware of. I mean, when we talk about Sagittarius, you're ruled by Jupiter, the planet that represents big, exciting things, right? And this is just a time where you could be a little bit grandiose in love, but sometimes that's necessary, you know what I mean? So I feel like just understanding that, being aware of that, and observing the fact that, like, things may not be quite as amazing as they seem, but that doesn't mean we can't enjoy them while they seem so amazing, you know? Capricorn. And so this week we have Venus entering your fourth house, and the fourth house is the house of home and family. This represents like where we come from, the past, right? And so I feel like this has the opportunity to be a very, very comfortable time. I feel like really under this transit, a really, really good mantra is that less is more. I feel like this is a time where like I was listening to this thing of, I don't know, it was like a podcast, but it was like a YouTube short where Michelle Obama was saying like a lot of life is really just like boring, right? A lot of life is what happens when nothing is going on, right? When people these days are like so like sped up in the future and they're always chasing, they're always going after something. They want connection, they want friendships, they want this, they want that. They're always go, 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 go. And for Capricorns, this is not a time for go, go, go energy. This is really a time to relish in the calm, to take the calm in. And it could be a time of like where you're interior decorating ideas. This is a good time to like change your home and just like spruce up your environment, spruce up the things that keep you going, and just to eat good food, to enjoy good times, and to enjoy a little bit of peace and quiet. So for Aquarius, I feel like this is a very good time to like negotiate. And when we talk about the third house where Venus is moving into, this is the house that represents like our neighborhood, our intellect, our ideas, the way we perceive things. It's a weird house, gonna be honest. It's a difficult house. It's a misunderstood house, I guess is a good way to put it. But the third house is like our senses a lot of the time. It is our awareness. And so I feel like this is a good time to pay attention to what you're noticing. Like if something is making you like uncomfortable, that is a sign, you know what I mean? Our emotions, our perception of a situation is it may not be 100% factual, but it is true for us. And I feel like this is a good time to pay attention to that. Like what are you feeling? Maybe there's a reason you're feeling this. Like maybe somebody doesn't want to admit it, but they're pressuring you, you know what I mean? And like you pick up on that and that gives you anxiety. You see what I'm saying? This is a good time to listen to those feelings, but it is not necessarily the best time to be acting upon what you're noticing. This is a time where you have the opportunity for like the next week and a half, I think. For the next 30 days, I would say this is a time to really to pay attention to things, but it's not necessarily a time of action or a time where like I would say like you need to move upon these feelings. This is a time to really like to take it in and gather information. That is really a key note, I feel like, for Aquarius at this time, is to be gathering information, like whatever that means for you, you know what I mean? Document it. Like they say at work all the time. That's like the HR word is like document it. But for real, like that's what you're going through. Like it's a time to be writing things down. It's taking notes. It's taking information in and observing the information that is being presented around you. So Pisces, 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 Pisces. So Pisces, this week we have Venus in the second house, and when I read the book, it said this transit can be either good or difficult, and that really makes sense because Venus connects to the senses, right? Venus connects to attraction and like our intake of our senses, right? Our touch, our taste, our smell, our sight, like the intake of those senses, the second house represents all the things we can touch, we can taste, we can feel, the things that we can sense. And so I would say that this is a time of heightened senses, right? This is a time where we are attractive to material possessions. And it is a time where like we can bring things into our life, right? But with Neptune here, I feel like there's a big message in like the ability or the potential to get just a slight bit carried away with a situation or like to take it to extremes is very possible. You know what I mean? Like in the pursuit of money is the capitalist dream. It is a good thing, right? But we can also like there is a need for balance with that, right? You can't work 24 hours a day. Like you have to sleep at some point. You have to eat at some point. These things keep you able to work in the long run. Maybe for like the first month, you can work 24 hours a day. You know what I mean? But like you can't do that consistently forever. And so I just feel like the message in Venus in the second house for you right now is to examine like what is going to keep you moving towards your goals, to examine even I feel like motivating factors is a really good word. Like what pushes you to drive for more? What was I watching? I was watching the Real Housewives. No, I was watching Bethany Gets Married and her therapist was asking her like, why are you chasing more success? I feel like understanding that is very important at this time because like she's already successful. Why does she need to also write this book so quick? She's writing her third book in the thing while she's getting married and having a kid. Like, why does she need to do all that at the same time? Why does she feel the need? Why can't she wait a month? You know what I mean? Like, or if and like if the book deal goes out, like would that be such a bad thing? You know what I mean? You're already successful. You've already made all this money. Why do you need to keep chasing that? And I feel like this is a good time to understand your motivations behind making money, to motivate, to understand like material possessions are important, right? Having nice sheets on your bed, having nice clothes are very, very important. But are you doing it for the right reasons? Are you doing it to for a you know what I mean? Are you doing it to make yourself feel better or is it for something else? This is a good time to really just notice, I feel like the motivating factors behind what it is you are attracting. That's a good way to put it too, is like, what are you attracting? This is a good time to be aware of why you want to attract something. You know what I mean?